Shnautra aure mazda Hashem vahu vahishtem asti ushtaste Ushtahamai yatashai vahishtai Hashem Baname ahura mazda. To think a good thought, to speak a good word, to do a good deed is righteousness. Happiness comes to those who live with the consciousness of righteousness. And with that sentiment, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mehrayin and welcome to Bahumata, a program designed to build oneness with the consciousness of righteousness in humanity. The goal is not to grow the plant, but to plant the seed for each one of us to blossom with our own love, light, grace, joy, and peace. So sit back, relax, and get ready for this very special journey to enlightenment. And as you do, please join me in giving a warm Zarathushtra welcome to our very own Zarathushtra neuroscientist from United Kingdom, Dr. Karishma Koka.
Welcome everybody to a beautiful program put together with the message of Asho Zarathustra, shared by our esteemed speakers and coordinated by Mr. Mehrayin, who puts the speakers together so that we may have the meanings of the prayers with the beauty of Asho Zarathustra's message applied to everyday life with the esteemed knowledge of our speakers. We aim to build with good thoughts, fellowship, and prayer with action, and send out powerful united vibrations of peace, love, and joy for the good of all, so that we can progress together. The principles of this program are to conserve and to share the knowledge and the prayers and principles with the practice of the Zarathushtra Dhyana, the consciousness, the path, and to honor our priests and knowledgeable elders who bring this message to us, and bridge the communication between the wisdom of the elders and the promise of the youth, so that together with everyone, we can build empowerment with knowledge and leadership for the good of all. So that with good thoughts, we can grow this fellowship, build world peace and happiness for the prosperity of all. Gratitude to my grandfather, Ervad Noshirvanji Pestanji Pantaki, and great-grandfather, Ervad Pestanji Noshirvanji Pantaki. My guiding light, Mobed Mehrayin Firuzgari. The late Ravan Shad Mobed Solipi Dastur, my mentor and facilitator, Mr. Mehrayin, Mr. Noshir Dadrawala, and Mr. Yazdi Tantra for support. For inspiration, Mr. Rohinton Munshi. Gratitude to the Zoroastrian Trust Funds for Europe, which was the oyster in which my thoughts grew, including Mr. Malcolm Debu, Mr. Rusi Dalal, Ana Mobed Sahib, Ziazad Bada, Jimmy Madan, Ervad Unwala, Zubin Writer, Zubin Bhedwar, and Mahyar Vajifdar. For encouragement, gratitude to Mr. Darius Potal and the family of Dr. and Mrs. Munshi, and gratitude to all Ashavans, family members, parents, including my own. Our previous session was last month. The first Sunday of every month is the Bahumata webinar with good thoughts, it means. And today we have Ervad Cyrus Darbari, Omid Mehrayin, Sanaya Khambatta, and Dina McIntyre with us. Gratitude to all those who help us share this message of Asho Zarathustra, including Parsi Khabar, Zoroastrians.net, Parsi Times, and the other newspapers, Worldwide Zoroastrians, everyone. Our core team includes Mr. Mehrayin, mentor and facilitator, and Mr. Yazdi Tantra, coordinator and technical support, and Mobed Mehrayin Firuzgari, Mohammad Soli P. Dastur, Mr. Norshid Adrawala, Ervad Koba Zarolia, Ervad Brigadier Behram Pantiki, Mr. Arzan Sam Wadia, Mr. Petrus Bevina, Mr. Mickey Mehta, and Nina Mistry for their support. In addition, we have our young fellowship ambassadors, Ervad Cyrus Unwala, Ervad Jehan Kotwal, Ervad Xerxes Bhandara, Tina's Karbhari, Benaz Nanavati, Dina's Tavadia, Mazarine Katrak, and Leah Contractor. In today's session, I will first hand you over now to Ervad Cyrus Darbari for a hum bandagi, and then come back to introduce our speakers, one by one. Over to you, Ervad. Mobed Sahib, Cyrus Darbari. Ervad Sahib, we can't hear you yet. You'll need to unmute yourself first, please.
Can you hear me now? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, Mobed Sahib, please go ahead.
Good evening to viewers in India, and a warm welcome to people staying in. Good morning to my viewers in USA, and hello to everyone who have logged in from other parts of the globe. I'll start with a small hum bandagi, a paragraph from Atash Nyaish. Snautra aure mazdao, nemasete atash mazdao, aure hudao majishta yazata, ashem vohu vaishtem asti, ushta asting, ushta ammai, yatashai vahishtai ashem. Upatva hakshoit geushvatva, upaviradam porutas, upatva veres vacha mano veres vaticha, hakshoit anguha, urvaksh anguha, gaya jiga esha. Tao shapano yao jvahi, imat atro afrivane, yo mai esmem baraiti, hikush rochas pairishta, ashahe bereza, yozdata. Hashem vohu vaishtem asting, ushta asting, ushta ammai, yatashai vahishtai Hashem. Over to you, Dr. Karishma.
Thank you very much, Mobed Sahib. Our speakers today, after Ervad Cyrus Darbari, will be Mobedyar Omid Mehrayin from Iran in the USA, Sanaya Khambatta from the UK, and Dina McIntyre from the USA. I'm grateful to our coordinator, my mentor and facilitator, Mr. Meher Amal Sadji, for putting together all the speakers who will take us through a concept from the prayers as they choose, the Humata, a few lines and meanings from the prayers as they deem fit, Hukta, and then their interpretation and their action to inspire us to take good action, Varshta. During this entire process, if you have questions, please fill them in the chat box. But after that, please start putting up your hands so that we can call upon you to actually speak out your questions and then share your inspiration in the next section from the prayers, from your experiences at various Atashadarans, Agyaris around the world, as you would like to. With that, I would like to now introduce our first speaker for the day. My gratitude to Mr. Meher Amal Sad for writing our biographies, which bring us the knowledge about the lives of our speakers. This special gold medalist, Mobed Sahib, who has selflessly dedicated his life towards providing an outstanding service to our Zarathustra community, holds a degree in electronic engineering and a master's degree in Avastha Pelvi from the University of Mumbai. Ervad Sahib Cyrus Darbari is an outstanding student of the Dada Rathornan Institute, where he spent 10 years from 1974 to 84. He holds the distinction of completing the Kordya Avastha, the Yajashne, the Visparad in the shortest possible time of 2.5 years, and underwent the Sampurna Navar at the age of 9, followed by the Martab, under the able guidance of the late Ervad Rustamji Noshirwanji Pantaki. He's the gold medalist from the DPYA High School, Dadar, Mumbai, and also a recipient of the National Merit Scholarship awarded by the Bombay Board for excellence in the HSC examinations of March 1986. He has also been the recipient of an award from the Dadar Athornan Institute for being an outstanding student under the late Rustamji Pantaki in 2010. Mabed Sahib Cyrus Darbari currently holds the position of Joint Secretary of the Managing Committee of the Dadar Athornan Mandal, which runs the Dadar Athornan Institute, the only surviving boarding school in India, which imparts the Sampurna, the full-fledged training of Mobedy or priesthood, to the children of the priestly class. He's a practicing priest at the Sir Sorabji Tuti Agyari, the Seth Gigi Boy Dadabai Agyari, and at the Dungarwadi, where he performs inner and outer liturgical ceremonies. Ervad Sahib Darbari has performed several Naujot, Navar, Martab, Wedding, Yasna, Vandidad, Gesarna, Dupsarna, Baj Dharna, Jashan, Fareshta, and other allied ceremonies, and continues to do so. He is one of the very few priests who can recite the Farokshi prayer by heart. He tutors and guides budding youngsters in their build-up to become Navar and Martab. Ervad Sahib Darbari is also the faculty member of the Sir Jamshedji Gigi Boy Zartushti Madrasa for Avastha Studies under the able guidance of Ervad Dr. Parvez Bajan. He teaches the twin ancient languages of Avastha and Pelvi to university students and delivers talks on the occasion of anniversary celebrations or any religious gathering. He also conducts religious quiz programs, delivers lectures as in part of the core committee of the MF Karma Athornan Institute Ex-Students Association, which has successfully conducted 19 sessions of refresher programs for Ervad Sahib's other Osta and Bedin Pasbans. He's on the core committee of Empowering Mobeds, a very special platform designed for Mobed Sahibs to learn and connect with each other as well as interact with the laity. Credit to all those who have organized this program. He's also a member of the panel of judges with the Bombay Parsi Association, which conducts prayer competitions every year for different age groups. He serves as a committee member of the Zarathushtra Anjuman Atish Behram and a trustee of the Kavasji Mobed Dharamshala at Tarapur. He makes time also for his profession, and by profession, he's an associated with the Ashtec Infotech Private Limited in the Sunshine Infotech industry in the capacity of Vice President Sales, with varied functions of business development, where he's responsible to design high-end data-centric solutions for industry, verticals like banking, finance, manufacturing, media, and pharma, including hardware, clustering, storage, virtualization, network solutions, backup, disaster recovery, business continuity sites, boardroom solutions, digital infrastructure, remote infrastructure management based on products from Hewlett-Packard, Dell EMC, NetApp, VMware, Oracle, Cisco Systems, Citrix, Symantec, just to name a few. With that inspirational sentiment, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming this very special Mobed Sahib, who's bending over backwards to reach out to our community all over the world with all his gusto and enthusiasm. Our very own Ervad Sahib Cyrus Dinsha Darbari from India. Over to you, Ervad Sahib. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Karishma. Formal good evening to viewers in India. Good morning to my fellow Zoroastrians in USA, and hello to everyone who have logged in from different parts of the globe. It's truly a pleasure to be invited by Team Humata as your featured Mobed speaker today. and to be among this august gathering. The core word in the subject of my talk today is wisdom. Indeed, Zarathustra's love of wisdom for benefiting humanity. What does wisdom translate to? In Avesta, it is called Dami or Kratum, while in Pelvi, it is called Danak or Kherdi. According to our prayer, Duanam Setayashne, wisdom or intelligence or knowledge can broadly be classified as being of two types. One is Asne Kherdi and the other one is Gosho Srute Kherdi. Asne Kherdi refers to the innate wisdom, that is, every human being is born with this intelligence, while the other one, that is Gosho Srute Kherdi, is called acquired wisdom. Gosho is closely linked to our Gujarati word Gush Gush Karvu. This type of wisdom is acquired by a child from an early age at school and is limitless till one breathes his last. The Yazata presiding over wisdom is Brahman Ameshaspan. The word Brahman can be broken as Bah or Bahu or Vohu, meaning good, and Man means mind. Hence, Vohuman or good mind is equivalent to Humata, which is good thought, which leads one to Hukta, good speech, and finally result in Huvarshta, good actions, which are the three fundamental concepts governing our Mazda-Yasni Zoroastrian religion. So much as the background in the introduction of wisdom. Our prophet Asho Zarathustra acquired the divine wisdom after meditating on Mount Ushidaren for 10 years. The knowledge so gained was for the benefit of mankind. He was engrossed in prayers, whereby he received messages from Aura Master and the knowledge of Gathas. Each of the chapters of Gathas contain questions posed by our prophet Zarathustra. The poetic commentary of Gathas is in the form of prophet seeking divine knowledge from Lord Aura Master. The messages received from Aura Master are encapsulated in different prayers, some of which I'll highlight today in my talk. The Gathas teach us all these noble principles which Zarathustra wanted people to learn. The Gathas find mention of the word Vohuman more than 100 times. A brief learning from each of the 5 Gathas. I'll just tell you in brief. Gatha Aunava, it teaches one to surrender to the will of God. Be patient, stay contented and happy in the condition in which Aura Mazda keeps us. The first chapter of Gatha, Yasnaha 28, begins with Prophet Zarathustra paying obeisance to Lord Aura Mazda and praying to the omniscient Lord with upstretched arms, seeking wisdom for him, whereby through good thoughts, that is Vohumana, and actions, Asha, he may please and show a way of life to the entire mankind on Mother Earth. Next is Gatha Ushtava, the word Ushta meaning happiness. Couple of the key takeaways from this Gatha. The first lesson Zarathustra teaches us is to do the right thing. But how to know what is right? Zarathustra therefore lays down the criteria to determine what is right. It is the principle of doing to others what one likes others should do to him. Very simple, but very powerful. I repeat, doing to others what one likes others should do to him and refrain from doing such acts which one would dislike being done unto him. This is illustrated in Yasnaha 43.1, Ushta Ammai, Yammai, Ushta Kammai Chit. We all know what the right course is. However, we deviate because of our inability to resist the temptation of pleasure. Zarathustra teaches us how to resist this temptation through the Gathas. One more important admonition from this Gatha is good things for the righteous and evil for the wicked. This is illustrated by the line, Akem Akai Vangvim Ashim Vangave. In Yasnaha 44, Gatha Ushtavaiti, Prophet Zarathustra is a very inquisitive mind, questioning Aura Mazda on various aspects of nature. Notable among them are: who determined the path of sun and stars? Who is responsible for the phenomena of waxing and waning of moon? who upholds the earth beneath and the skies from falling down, who maintains waters and plants, who yoked swiftness to winds and clouds, who created light and darkness, who created sleep and wakefulness, who made morning, noon, and night that serve as reminder call to a human being to carry out his duty, who put in values and wisdom in a son so that he is obedient to his father. The answers to above questions do not come to prophet so easily. Zarathustra spent 10 years in meditation, whereby he could have his queries resolved. Moving on to Gatha's Pentomer, the third Gatha, it tells us to make the world prosperous by means of the benevolent divine wisdom. Gatha Vokshatra, fourth Gatha, it means power of the good mind. Good power used on the part of righteousness to do noble deeds increases the prosperity and happiness besides doing good for the people. And finally, Gatha Vahishtoish, it implies obtaining best happiness. This Gatha finds mention of Zarathustra's daughter, Pouruchisti, his youngest daughter, well, she enters wedlock. And the same advice, it may be applied to all the maidens and newlywed husbands. Zarathustra admonishes the couple to always live a life full of love with pure mind. Each of them must endeavor to surpass each other in truth and righteousness so as to reap the reward of unending joy and happiness. Over and about this, we find dialogues of conversation between Dada Rauramazda and our prophet Zarathustra in various yash, which are admonitions from Dada Rauramazda for the benefit of mankind. I'll list a few of them. The first is from Hormuzd Yash. Hormuzd Yash lists about 75 names by which Dada Rauramazda is addressed. Some important ones are all-pervading, all-knowing, supreme holy, endowed with wisdom, increaser of prosperity, the bestower of life, the most beneficent, invincible, one who maintains account of deeds of mankind, all watching, the best healer, the protector, the creator, the nourisher, the best Atravan, a Mobedyar, the most glorious ruler at will. Dada Rauramazda advises Zarathustra and thereby advocates all worshippers, Zoroastrian worshippers, to pray and recite these names regularly during day or night, 24/7 by 365 days, while tying the sacred kushti or while untying, with an assurance that by doing so, no amount of evil, druj, any sharp, piercing weapon, sharp arrow, sword, or stone can strike, attack, and harm that devotee. This is illustrated by the following paragraph in Avasta. From Rava Paitiva Asni Paitiva Kshafne Aivyaunga Nemva Aivyaunga Yamna Aivyaunga Nemva Buzyamna Noit Dem Nara Ange Ayan Noit Angav Shapo Aishmo Druta He Drukshmanango Avasya Noit Akavo Noit Chakavo Noit Ishavo Noit Kareta Noit Vazra Noit Vicente Asano Avasya. I'll give one more example of a prayer of similar nature found in Farvardin Yash, Karda 2, wherein Rauramazda advises Prophet Zarathustra to recite the sacred verses from this Yash, which is also called a Farokshi prayer, to achieve victory when confronted by the terror of any danger and fear of bodily harm. I could run through many such references. However, due to paucity of time, I reserve it for another day. You may write to me on anything specific and I'll be happy to answer you. My email ID is Cyrus_Darbari@ashinfo.com. Thus, with prayer of hope, happiness, and peace for everyone, I end my address today praying for a better tomorrow for mankind across Hafta Keshwar Zamin, the 7 regions of the world. Atha Zamiyat, Yatha Afrinami, may it be so as we pray. Thank you all very much for listening to me patiently. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Karishma.
Yes, done, Panabad, and thank you very much, Mabed Sahib Cyrus Darbari, for your wisdom and for sharing the light and love of Asho Zarathustra for our good. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mobedyar Omid Mehrayin, who represents Iran and the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I would like to introduce to you a Mobedyar, an assistant to the priest from our motherland, Iran, who is now involved in serving the spiritual needs of our Zarathushtra community in Northern California. Mobedyar Omid Mehrayin is an electrical engineer and a project manager with the California-based Jerome and Horner, the nation's premier chocolate and coffee design and build firm. Now, Mobedyar Omid is devoted to the service of humanity in all he does. He has recently been nominated as the Zoroastrian of the Year by the California Zoroastrian Association, the CZC, for which we thank the CZC and we thank Mobedyar Omid for his service. Omid believes everyone has been created for a unique purpose in life. And his work and study and everything else are ultimately just tools to propel one to a higher goal in life. He says, our responsibility is to find that purpose through the stillness of our mind and being honest with ourselves. Mobedyar Omid was born and raised in Tehran, Iran by his loving Zoroastrian parents, Bemen Mehrayin and Morvaid Parsi Nejad. Along with a passion for study, which led him to a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering in Iran, he has always been highly spiritual, questioning himself and others about the purpose of life. At a very young age, he had met our honorable and respected Mobed Mehraban Firuzgari for the first time, a father figure and a great inspiration to Mobedyar Omid. Mobed Firuzgari taught him Avasta chanting, and Mobedyar Omid was able to participate in special classes of the Shraddhavan Mobedan e Mobed Dr. Rustam Shahzadi. After Omid's mother passed away about 25 years ago, homage to her, Omid was ready to challenge himself more. In addition to securing his engineering degree, he also participated in a series of courses from Iranian Mobed Council, the Mobedyari, graduating after 3 years of intense spiritual study. During and after the graduation from university, he worked as an electrical controls engineer for multiple industries in Iran, providing systems control and automation to the oil and gas, petrochemical, food, beverage, cement, and other industries. Traveling to cities throughout Iran, Mashhad, Khark Island, Khorram, Abad, etc., he was proud to serve in the country in which he grew up. When Mobedyar Omid emigrated to the United States of America in December 2008, he viewed immigration not just as a travel from one place to another, but as an opportunity for expanding self-realization through contact with other cultures. In less than a month, he was hired as an electrical and controls project manager by the Ghirardelli chocolate factory. For Omid, getting a job in the field of his choice during the tough economy of the Great Depression of 2008 was like a miracle. Having majored in engineering management and leadership at Santa Clara University, he continued his studies after graduating in 2016. He began working at Jerome and Horner as a project manager engineer, and truly an example of one who has worked hard with dedication and integrity to bring him from the bottom to the top. Mobedyar Omid believes home is wherever we can find our true selves and discover the humanity of all others, regardless of race, language, culture, and life experience. through compassion. Proud to be a Zoroastrian who believes Zarathustra is the greatest spiritual leader of all time, Mobedyar Omid has built himself financially and believes that serving people in need is a blessing and an opportunity from Ahura Mazda. As a Mobedyar, which is assistant to the priest, he gives back what he has learned through the years to humanity in general, as well as to the Zoroastrian community. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm Zarathushti welcome to this young Zarathushti who is fully committed towards making a remarkable difference in humanity and who is representing our motherland, Iran, and the United States of America, our very own Mobedyar Omid Mehrayin.
Shout out Mazda. Thank you, Karishma. Thank you, Mami Jeru, Baba Mehr, and Yazdi, and everybody for this great series of webinar which connects all Zoroastrian across the world. When we say Zoroastrian, we're not talking about just a group of people or a community. We're talking about whoever is connected and tapped to Ashu Zartush wisdom and spirituality. It's an honor for me to be here in this webinar today, even though I know the topic is extremely difficult to talk about, because I know Ashu Zartush not only as a great spiritual leader and greatest spiritual leader of all time, but also as a scientist, as an astrologer, and talk about him and his spirituality and wisdom is extremely difficult, but I do my best in this 5 minutes limited time. There are three types of wisdom. There's one that we know as an individual. The second one is the individual wisdom to other individuals and also all beings in our planet Earth. And the third one is what we see as a global wisdom, which is between all planets and all galaxies and everywhere else. Ashu Zartush wisely uses three words, which eventually they're one differently, to distinguish between all these three wisdom. He uses Mazda, Mazda Ahura, and Ahura Mazda. He also uses word Asha, which is the law of creation, which is 100% accurate is because it's based on science and because based on reality. Why knowing the global wisdom and the interaction between individual and others is important for us? That's the question we have to ask ourselves, because we live as an individual. So why we have to think about broader view, broader wisdom? Three reasons came to my mind, and you guys might come up with more reasons that I want to just share with you. The first one is that once we know there are other beings and there are other galaxies, multiple galaxies around the globe, which our Milky Way galaxy is just one of them. And there are multiple planets in that Milky Way galaxy, which our planet Earth is just one of them. And there are multiple countries and continents in our planet Earth, which our country is just one of them. And there are multiple people, there are a lot of people live in that country or continent, which we are just one of them. So we are actually one itty bitty, teeny tiny little piece of the entire globe. So do we think that, is there any room for arrogance or ignorance or selfishness as a human? Absolutely not. On the other side, we are a little piece of the entire globe, but the entire universe is inside us, because human is capable to go to moon, to go to Mars, to do stuff, to discover things. That's why we have to be wise in mind and in spirit, but at the same time, we have to be humble. That's really crucial. The second reason is that once we know the interaction between all the planets and galaxies and their movement and their energy level and their effect to the energy level to our planet Earth, we realize, sometimes we wake up in the morning and we feel like beat up, and the next day we feel like fresh, and we wonder why. There are multiple reasons, but one of them could be the effect of the energy of the entire universe, their movement to our planet Earth and to us as well. And the third one, which is the most important one in my point of view, is that understanding Zarathustra teaching requires that we need to look at things in not only physical aspect, but actually energy level and vibration level. We all connected to each other via vibration and energy. If I just want to give you an example, if I'm on the 3rd floor and there's a fire on the 1st floor, is it wise to say I'm safe? Absolutely not, because sooner or later fire is going to get to the 3rd floor. That's how we all as human, we all connected to each other. If someone is suffering on the other side of the world, the energy and vibration of that suffer is going to get to us and is going to affect us. If it's not today, it's going to be tomorrow. That's why Zarathustra, in my point of view, he is the greatest spiritual leader of all time, because he points out wisely that our thought, words, and action has a vibration. We are responsible for our words, thoughts, and actions. He makes us to be responsible. He makes us to be leader of our own life. He doesn't want followers. He wants to be leaders, because once we realize how important is our thought, words, and action, how it could affect ourselves and the people around us, then we approach differently, we act differently. He wants us to be like himself, Ashu, which he understood the Asha law wisely, and we have to match ourselves with Asha law in order to get to that point. I just want to read the translation of Hot 51:22, which says, the person who does all his actions as an act of worship through Asha's law is judged as the best by Mazda Ahura. Those who have been in the past and who are such at present, I shall respect and recall them by name, and shall try to reach their high position by good deeds. As we pray every day, Shnau Traure Mazda, if the people comes across our path, whoever comes across our path, if we look at them as part of Mazda, then we approach them with compassion, and we just see them, the beauty inside of them, and we approach them with compassion in order to help them to get to their destiny. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mobedyar, Omid, Mehrayin, for sharing the wisdom, tying Bahumana to Asha to Bahukshatra. Thank you very much.
You're on mute, Karishma.
Thank you, Yazdi. Sanaya is a very special, dynamic youth speaker from the United Kingdom. And I would like to, with great gratitude, introduce her, as she has been involved in the global Zoroastrian youth affairs with an immense passion for socializing through networking. As Sanaya says, and I quote, "It is never too late to get involved in the community, and we always welcome fresh new faces who are passionate as us, in making a positive difference by engaging and bringing the youth together." Sanaya serves as the senior technical consultant at IBM after obtaining her degree in information technology management for business. She's passionate about encouraging others to pursue a career in the technology sector and runs yearly internships for university students and industry talks to share knowledge, skills, and expertise within her field. Sanaya also works with global nonprofit organizations to help them to create a digital presence, to share their mission and further their cause. Sanaya says, growing up, my family always ensured that I had a strong sense of community. As a result, I always had Zoroastrian friends and engaged with them socially on a regular basis, whether that be through attending Sunday religious classes at our Zoroastrian Center, which is the ZTFE, where I had the opportunity to learn about the religion, or having people over at our house. My parents, that is Zenobia and Virav Khambatta, ensured that they always attended celebrations or events at the Zoroastrian Center, whether they be Navroz or community-led initiatives, etc., and encouraged me to surround myself with other Zoroastrians, as well as traditions and values of our community. These friendships continued over the years and became more and more important as I grew up. I loved that sense of belonging and being involved with others my age, who weren't just from school or extracurricular activities. This helped shape my identity and instilled in me the values of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, unquote. As a proud Zoroastrian of the United Kingdom community, Sanaya has always enjoyed socializing with other young Zoroastrians, the YZs, which encouraged her to become more active and involved in the community. Her main driving factor for getting involved, and even now, is to create an environment whereby the future Zoroastrian youth have that same sense of feeling of community. And she does this to allow them the opportunity to grow and to connect with each other. Sanaya believes that it is equally important to get involved in community-based events as educating themselves on religion, understanding background and roots, and other traditions. She really wants individuals to follow the religion, not because they must, but because they want to be part of this community and the environment. Sanaya presently serves as the Vice President of the Young Zoroastrians of the UK and co-chair for the 2023 8th World Zoroastrian Youth Congress in the United Kingdom. She's extremely dedicated and motivated about creating a sense of community amongst the global Zoroastrian youth, to allow them the opportunity to grow and connect with each other, as well as to educate themselves on the religion and our roots. Sanaya hopes she can help contribute towards a lasting legacy and a more sustainable future for generations to come, as well as to encourage the future generations of the Zoroastrian youth to work together, to celebrate, to educate, to teach, and to bond over the religion. What an amazing spirit of reaching out, Sanaya. Thank you. Kudos to you for serving with that pristine dedication. And with that sentiment, may I also thank her respected parents who have given Sanaya to the world, to us, to share Asho Zarathustra's wisdom and love. Over to you, Sanaya, with much gratitude.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Auntie Karishma, and to the Bahumata team for having me here, and also including the youth in everything that you do, which is so, so immensely important. So I know we've touched a lot about different ways to see wisdom. Some may say, I guess, wisdom can be theoretical knowledge, scientific facts, scholarly. But as we've heard, the Gathas tell us to seek the wisdom by good actions, good thoughts, to treat others how you want to be treated. So how can we bring this into the modern day and follow the Gathas' teaching? So I was actually on a training course a few weeks ago and thought it was very, it related quite well to what we're discussing today. And right now, a lot of people talk about emotional intelligence, so about verbal and non-verbal communication styles, so the social skills, motivations in building relationships and bringing community together, having self-regulation, some structure in everything that you do and a purpose, and that self-awareness of what you're doing, how you're making others feel, which in turn makes you have a lot more knowledge and imparts wisdom so you can build relationships with your community. And finally, empathy. So there's 3 different types of empathy. You can have cognitive, social, and empathetic concern. So I get how you feel, I understand how you feel. And looking at what we're doing as a Congress committee as well, we want to understand how we're making others feel in our religion, building those relationships and bringing the community together. And we hope that the Congress will enlighten individuals to understand a bit more about the teachings of our religion, share that wisdom and knowledge about our religion, and to build and grow relationships within our community and develop those deeper, longer lasting connections. The one thing that brings us all together is our faith and our religion. So we want to be more self-aware of the teachings and how it can bring everyone together. Oh, I think Auntie Karishma, you're on mute as well.
Thank you, Sanaya. I was hoping to hear a little bit more from you, so I was waiting, but I'll wait till the sharing section for people to ask you relevant questions, for you to give us more of your wisdom and knowledge. Thank you so much, Sanaya.
Thank you.
And thank you to Sanaya's parents, Viraf and Zenobia, for giving us a person who really works hard to balance her work and her community spirit.
Again, you went mute.
Our next speaker is a person of immense wisdom, Dina McIntyre. Dina is a wonderful teacher, and I'm really grateful to her for her website and all the knowledge she imparts. It is with immense joy, gratitude, and respect that I would like to introduce this world-renowned international Zarathustri speaker with a scholastic repute from the United States of America, who has selflessly devoted the last 4 decades towards promoting the spiritual essence of our Zarathustra's message within the fiber of the present and the future generation. Dina McIntyre is a retired lawyer. She is a Zoroastrian who was born in India and came to the United States in 1956. She received a Bachelor of Science degree from the Carnegie Mellon University, then called the Carnegie Institute of Technology, and a law degree from the University of Pittsburgh School of Law. She then practiced law in the United States from 1964 to her retirement in 2005. Prior to her retirement, she was a member of the bar of all federal and state courts in Pennsylvania, as well as the United States Supreme Court. With a keen interest in the Zoroastrian roots, Dina became interested in Zoroastrian theology in the early 1980s and has studied the Gathas since that time. What started out as an interest in her roots has blossomed into a full-blown love affair. Dina says the Gathas are the love of her life next to her family. They provide her with a way of life and satisfy her intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. She studied Asho Zarathustra's teachings and served as the editor of a 12-lesson course on the Gathas called An Introduction to the Gathas of Zarathustra, which she distributed worldwide in 1989 and 90. Dina has studied Avesta and has lectured on the teachings of Asho Zarathustra in the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, India, South America, New Zealand, Australia, and also at the Parliament of World Religions in 1993. She has also spoken at the North American Zoroastrian Congresses, at Zoroastrian associations and youth groups in the US, Canada, India, Australia, New Zealand, South America, and England, and has been a speaker at Gatha conferences held in London, California, and Houston, respectively. Her writings on the teachings of Asho Zarathustra have appeared in various Zarathustri local and global journals, including the Fezana Journal, the WZO Hamazor, the CZC Chehere Nama, Vahuman.org, Zoroastrians.net, and numerous other global publications as well as websites. On the 1st of January, 1993, Dina published a book titled Small Bouquets from the Teachings of the Prophet Zarathustra. This priceless book is composed of special articles titled A Lifestyle Called Zoroastrianism by Professor Emeritus Dr. Farang Mehr, The Vision of Zarathustra by Professor Emeritus Dr. Kekashu Dierani, Zarathustra's Paradise in This World and the Next by Dina G. McIntyre, and the selections of the Gathas of Zarathustra. Splendid. Our hats off to you, Dina, for this gift of valuable inspiration. And with that immense sense of gratitude, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm Zarathushti welcome to this lady with a heart of gold, dipped with the knowledge of our ancient spiritual philosophy in the message of Zarathustra and its relevance today. Thank you very much, Dina, and thank you, Baba Meher, for writing our biographies.
Thank you, Karishma, for that very generous welcome. Yasdi, can we start slide 1, please? The Yasna Haptang Haiti describes the divine as, O Lord Wisdom, beautiful through truth. What makes a being beautiful through truth? Well, in English, truth usually means factual truths. In Avestan, next slide, please, Asha means an order of existence that is true, correct. It includes factual truths as well as the truths of mind, heart, spirit, all that is right, which in the Gathas includes such qualities as honesty, loving kindness, generosity, friendship, compassion, being just, as in being fair, etc. All these qualities have one thing in common, goodness. In fact, in the Gathas, Asha is described as Vahishta, the superlative of Vahu, good. And Asha Vahishta became a standard term in later Avestan texts. So Asha is an order of existence that is goodness in the superlative degree, as our Hashem Vahu prayer tells us, Hashem Vahishtamasti. We live in difficult times when the good values we cherish are under siege. But Zarathustra lived in even more difficult times, as did many ancient Zoroastrians. So let us take a look at how they thought we could make life beautiful through truth, starting with how we govern ourselves, which impacts our communities, our world. Next slide, please. Good rule is a rule that serves. The Gathas say, one chooses that rule of good thinking allied with truth in order to serve. Fame is to serve thee and the truth, wisdom, under thy rule. Now, good thinking, truth, and their rule are divine qualities, Amesha Spenta, that we also have, although incompletely, imperfectly. So how do we translate these qualities into reality? With another Amesha Spenta that we also have incompletely, imperfectly. Speaking of these qualities in the divine, Zarathustra says, but to this world he came with the rule of good thinking and of truth, and enduring Aramaiti gave body and breath to it. How does Aramaiti give body and breath to the rule of truth and good thinking? It can only do so with thoughts, words, and actions that bring truth to life, give it substance. And in fact, Zarathustra specifically says so. Through its actions, Aramaiti gives substance to the truth. Referring to this divine quality, Aramaiti in us, he says, beneficial is a man of Aramaiti. He is so by reason of his understanding, his words, his actions, his envisionment. The beneficent man, he serves truth during his rule with good word and good action. So each time we make a choice which brings truth to life, gives it body and breath, substance, with our good thoughts, words, and actions, we help to make our world better. We help to make it beautiful through truth. That little soundbite from, those ideas from the Gathas were first turned into a famous soundbite in the Yasna Haptang Haiti, which is the text closest in time to the Gathas. It says, "We are praisers in song, not deriders, of good thoughts, of good words, of good actions, here and elsewhere, of those that are being produced and of those that have been produced. Through effort in taking a stand, we are part of the good." And we find the same commitment in the Jasamaya Vanghemazda prayer, which is a quotation from Yasna 12, and which was composed much later in time than the Gathas in an archaic form of Younger Avestan. It says, "Astu yehumatem mano, I commit to the thought, well thought. Astu yehuktem vacho, I commit to the word, well spoken. Astu ye hvarshtem shiautanem, I commit to the deed, well done. Frasbayao kedram nidhas naitishem, kvaitvadatam ashaunim. Quarrel removing, weapon lowering, giving of oneself, truth-filled. Mazishtacha, vahishtacha, sraishtacha, most great, most good, most beautiful. The word mazishta is not most great in a competitive sense. It is the greatness of truth within that expresses itself in thoughts, words, and actions that are most good and therefore most beautiful, which is Zarathustra's wisdom worshipping good envisionment, Dainam Vanguhim Mazdayasnim. But this little triad, good thoughts, good words, good deeds, has an added dimension. In Zarathustra's thought, paradise is not a place of reward in the afterlife. It is a state of being that we become, starting in mortal existence. One of the names for paradise in the Gathas and later texts is the most good existence, Ahu Vahishta. And a later Avestan text tells us in metaphoric steps how a person attains this most good existence, Ahu Vahishta, that is paradise. It says, the first step placed him in the good thought paradise. The second step placed him in the good word paradise. The third step placed him in the good deed paradise. The fourth step placed him in the endless lights. And in the Pahlavi Bundahishan, the divine is named endless light. To summarize, our good thoughts, good words, good deeds are how we serve, how we make existence, our world, beautiful through the goodness of truth, Asha Vahishta. And they also help us to become, in thought, word, and action, the paradise of a most good existence, Ahu Vahishta, truth personified, an enlightened state of being, which is wisdom. So each time we choose a good thought, a good word, a good action, we bring a little bit of paradise, a little bit of the divine into our world and in ourselves. We become partners with the divine in healing existence. As Zarathustra says, the loving man, beneficial through truth, watching over the heritage for all, is a world healer, and thy ally in his way of being, wisdom. Therefore, may we also be those who shall heal this world. Thank you, and my thanks to Yazdi Tatra for so generously formatting and projecting my slides. Thank you, Yazdi.
Words are not enough to thank Dina and our other wonderful speakers for what they have done today to bring Asho Zarathustra, the scientist, the healer, the one who makes our world paradise by, as Dina said, who we are, who we become. Please start filling the chat box. Please start raising your hands so that Yazdi can find you and allow you to unmute. In that time, let us listen to a verse, the very first verse of the Gathas. It's in Mummy's voice, and contemplate what we have heard.
Ayayasa Nimanga Oshano Zastora Pedrayao Manius Mazal Porim Spentayao Ashal Wispeng Shona Wangeus Kratum Manango Ya Sevisha Geusha Urvane Ayayasa Nimanga.
Now let's all be together, give gratitude to Asho Zarathustra, to our speakers, to Baba Meher for bringing our speakers together, and Yazdi Tatra for hosting us and putting us all on Zoroastrians.net. Please turn your cameras on and start raising your hands. Until then, Mummy reminds me, I must say, Hama Jol, Hama Shobad. May we be united in spiritual strength and good actions. We have lovely comments. I suggest we all start reading them. Mobed Sahib Zarir Bhandara, if you'd like to come on, you've got a comment. Then Maruk Tamboli, Khushru Bagli. If you please just raise your hands, then Yazdi can find you. Otherwise, we've got a lot of people, wonderful people around the world. It's very challenging for Yazdi to actually find us all. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, Maruk Tamboli says. Well done, Ervad Sahib. Cyrus Darbari, Mobedyar Khushru Bagli says. Rushad Hirji, amazing speech, Sanaya. Cyrus Darbari says, Ervad Sahib.
No more prayers?
Thank you. No more prayers. Somebody doesn't get enough of the prayers. Yes, we'll have a hum bandagi at the end. We will request Mobed Sahib Cyrus Darbari to give us a hum bandagi at the end, please. Okay, there's a question from Khushru Bagli, a comment. Khushru Bagli Sahib, would you like to raise your hand? He says, Dina McIntyre, thank you for providing the Khushru Bagli Sahib, please unmute yourself.
Yes, I would like to thank all the speakers for giving an excellent presentation today. Thank you very much. And I also want to thank Dina McIntyre for providing the translation to some of our key prayers, which help us to better understand our religion. Thank you, Dina. And of course, your books are legendary and are a must reading for all Zoroastrians. One of the things I would like to ask Sanaya, a young member, is how does the youth feel about some of our religious rituals in modern times? Do they feel connected to the religion because of the many rituals that go along with our religion?
Thank you for your question. I think it's about educating ourselves about what the true meaning behind these rituals are as well. We were all at the Usher Center last weekend, and we are taking it upon ourselves to actually understand some more of the teachings and rituals so we can be fully confident in what we're understanding about the religion and everything like this. So it's all a educational phase for us as well, so that we can become more aligned and connected with the religion as a whole.
Thank you, Sanaya. Excellent answer and appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Karishma. Over to YSD.
Thank you very much. We have a question from Shiraz Desai. Yes, Shiraz, the video will be available on Zoroastrians.net in its complete unedited version. We tend not to edit our videos so that it's a representation of the event of all of us being together as this family of Zarathustris and friends of Zarathustris around the world. I have a question for Dina first. Dina, as you go through your work and provide meanings, would you like to comment on anything that will make it easier for our younger generation? As Sanaya said, they're gathering together to understand further. What is your advice to them to understand the meanings of the prayers?
Well, of course, the important thing is to do exactly what Sanaya was saying, and that is make a commitment to try to understand the meanings of the prayers and rituals. And one of our speakers in a past Bahumata, Jimmy Marden, who I believe is a priest in the UK, from the talk he gave, he has made a very good beginning in just exactly this respect, understanding what the prayers and rituals are about. Some of them are really very beautiful, and there is an awful lot that is very beautiful that we really may not be aware of, which is one reason why I have tried to write about them so that I can spread a little knowledge about them. But what I have done is just a drop in the bucket. It's up to everyone else now to put their 2 cents worth, just as I have tried to do, and find the meanings accurately of our prayers and rituals. But even more important, the meanings of Zarathustra's teachings as a way of life. That is the most beautiful prayer of all, is the way you live your life. Zarathustra talks in the Gathas about prayers of Aramaiti, prayers of thoughts, words, and actions that embody truth, that make life beautiful. So I think we're all headed in the right direction. And I think if we make our lives a prayer, a living prayer, that's the way to go.
Thank you very much, Dina. I'd like to bring in Mobed Sahib, Cyrus, Darbari, if I may, please. Mobed Sahib, as a practicing priest and as a teacher of several different ages, but particularly the youth, please, would you guide or share the light of your wisdom and Asho Zarathustra's inspiration for the young Mobed Sahibs, and how we, so in 2 parts, my question is to you. One is your inspiration for the younger Mobed Sahibs and the teachers, the Ervad Sahibs. And second part, what can we do as the fellowship around the world to empower our Mobed Sahibs and our Ervad Sahibs further and give them the respect that is due to them? Over to you.
If you ask me for the younger generation, is it specific you're asking about the younger generation Mobed Sahibs or youngsters from the
The first
class,
question,
or in general?
first question is your inspiration for the younger Mobed Sahibs and the Ervad
Mobed
Sahibs, those who
Sahibs.
go on to teach, those who go on to perform the priestly duties, and those who go on to share the knowledge. And then I'll repeat my second question later.
As regards the inspiration to this the future Mobed Sahibs of our community, one way is, I would say, the youngsters, just a handful of youngsters from the priestly class, they go through the entire process of learning, first of all the scriptures. And as I had mentioned, Zarathustra Institute in Mumbai, India is the only one of its kind, which produces the Sampurna younger generation of Mobed Sahibs. Other than that, those outside of the institute, largely they are driven by their parents because they want to continue the generation. They would want their youngsters to at least become a priest so that they can continue whatever if someone is a kind of Mobed or a priest in their family, they would want to continue that tradition, which is why. So two sets of the youngsters are emerging. The ones who are from the Zarathustra Institute, we take utmost care to ensure that once they graduate, they are always connected with prayers, with the community affairs. And I'm proud to say that at least 80% of the youngsters who emerge out of the Zarathustra Institute, they are in some way or the other connected with the Mobedy. They are serving the community while duplicating, while doing their other duties, going to college. But the same thing the parents need to push. It is an early sign. During the childhood days, youngsters, they will do whatever their parents ask them to do. So it is a double responsibility of the parents to inculcate these values in them at a young age. Before the age of 12 or 14, if there is an environment made within their homes, then these are the set of children who would be inclined towards our religion, our prayers, our customs, and they would be more interested. We can't pick them after they reach the age of 15, 17 years of age and ask them to join such courses or any of the classes. Fortunately for us in Mumbai and India, we have a lot of such kind of programs, the Sunday programs, workshops, small-time workshops, where we want the children to come. And that's a good initiative by Bahumata also. But ideally, our focus should be onto the audience who are youngsters. And that is how we can impress upon them. Thank you.
May I save my
Yes, Sanaya.
second question for a little while later, where I'd like you to please contribute to how you perceive how the fellowship around the world can help and strengthen the hand of people like yourselves and empowering Mobeds, so that we can give respect as due to our Mobed Sahibs and Ervad Sahibs. But I'll save that question for later and bring you in later, if I may. We have a hand raised, Mobedyar Sahib Khushru Mirza. Please would you unmute yourself and ask your question yourself. Thank you.
We were talking about the prayers and the meaning of prayers. One observation here is any person trying to read translations of these prayers for the first time is well advised to do that in the company of somebody who can actually interpret these prayers properly for them. If you take up a book and just read the prayers, you run the risk of being actually turned off. And that's a reality. The reality is, and it was explained very nicely by Demoros Setna, I think, in his book on translation of the Cordia Vesta, that at best, these translations are faulty because of our lack of knowledge or complete knowledge of Pahlavi and Avestan. And until some smart people, by the use of computers, figure out the best translations for these prayers, let's not throw them away. People are agitating and wanting to pray in English. Yes, go ahead and pray in English, but try to get the best way to translate these prayers. Until then, it's their vibrations that are helping us right now. We need to understand these prayers for many of them are allegorical, and that is very difficult sometimes to put a good sense to. So for a young person, I would strongly advise that that person be guided by someone knowledgeable who can interpret these prayers for them. And it applies to the gathas just as much. They are beautiful. And every time you read them, you see a different meaning in them. But it requires a lot of patience and technical knowledge to actually debug what these prayers are trying to say. That's my observation. Thank you.
That's a very valid point. I've spent about 6 months teaching myself Dine Dibre, the script, so that I can actually learn some of the translations in its original format. And it's extremely, extremely difficult just to learn the script, then come the words, then come finding translations, and then come trying to find somebody like Ervad Sahib Ramyar Karanjia, who actually spends time emailing and sharing word by word meanings so patiently, sentence by sentence interpretations so kindly. I mean, my hat's off to him as the principal of a school. He makes time to do this. Thank you, Ervad Sahib Ramyar Karanjia. There is a question, a very pointed question from Galaxy A325G. Now, if you would kindly raise your hand, it would be lovely to see you also. But it's a question, a very specific question from Mobedyar Mehrayin. Mobedyar Omid Mehrayin. The question is this. Let me just see if we have a hand raised yet. Okay. This person says, Omid Mehrayin mentioned that everyone should be a leader of his or her life. Would you please elaborate on this very inspirational speech? Thank you. After that, if we could bring in Mabed Sahib Zarir Bhandara and then Khushru Bagli Sahib, I'd be very grateful. Please, both of you raise your hands and keep yourselves ready. Over to you, Mobedyar Omid Sahib.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. It's an excellent question. And I just want to, I'm glad that he or she asked this question because I didn't have time to go through the details a little bit. So when we say Mazda, it refers to intelligence, infinite intelligence that knows everything. How do we know that we know something? That's the big question, because sometimes we think we know something and in reality we don't know because, for instance, the scientists, they say, today, green tea is good for cancer. The next day they say green tea is not good for cancer. So that's not knowledge. That's not intelligence. We try to do something, but it's not. The only way to get the pure intelligence is to tap to Mazda, because that intelligence knows everything. That's the meaning of the prayer. That's why we have to do these prayers, because once we connect to that source, then we are connected to Asha. We are connected to the wisdom of the universe. And that's how we could say we have to be leader in our life. Another aspect of it is because knowing that every thought, word, and action has a consequence, and we are entitled to that consequence. So we have to take responsibility every single moment for our thoughts, words, and actions. And that's not easy. That's not being Zoroastrian. That's why being Zoroastrian is really difficult. It's not an easy thing, and it's not for everybody. Because being Zoroastrian means that we have to live in the moment, we have to be present in the moment and make choice in our life. And knowing that choice could affect other people's life as well. And that's the leadership, and leadership is really difficult and challenging sometimes.
Thank you very much, Mobedyar Omid. I'd like to make a comment before I bring in Dina, if I may, please, Dina, after this, to comment on leadership in our life, the concept of Bahukshatra based on Bahumana and Asha, and any other way she would like to talk about it. And then I'd like to bring in Sanaya Khambatta with her permission, please, on leadership in today's world among the young and the old, so that we have an intergenerational sharing today. Before that, I'd just like to share with the audience that in America, the NAMC, the North American Mobed Council, instituted the concept of Mobedyars, the assistants to the priests, to fill in a big void with the lack of priests at one time, if I understand this correctly. It is an immense dedication for somebody who is from the laity to give up their time to learn something that a Mobed Sahib may have experienced from before his birth. In utero, the brain develops, the networks of the brain develop. And when our unborn Mobed Sahibs are listening to the prayers in their mother's womb, I believe the rearrangement of chromosomes and genes and the epigenetic changes they're exposed to throughout their childhood, hearing the Matravani, is a profound experience. And our Mobedyars give up their time to learn this through dedication. So I'd just like us to contemplate on these two types of teachers we now have in the world, the Mobeds and the Ervad Sahibs, and the Mobedyars, who do this out of choice. But before that, may we please hear from first Dina and then Sanaya on the concept of Untitled Chapter, both from inside, the leadership from inside, and leadership from outside.
Well, before I get to Vahukshetra, may I make a brief comment about one of Zarathustra, something that Mobedyar Omid said that triggered this thought. One of the most important and basic teachings of Zarathustra is that he teaches us to search for truth. He says, and I quote, and I think this is Yasna 28, verses 4 and 5. He says, as long as I shall be able and be strong, so long shall I look in quest of truth. Truth shall I see thee as I continue to acquire good thinking. So I think if we internalize this teaching, if we understand it and practice it, our religion can never be obsolete, because nobody knows everything. And the human condition, being a mix of imperfections and good stuff, the more we search for truth and the more we try to embody it in thought, word, and action, the more we advance spiritually. The problem is, it takes courage sometimes. When you search for truth, it takes courage to say, okay, well, maybe something we have been doing is a little obsolete, and we need to implement what is true and right. True as in accurate and right as in good. In terms of Vahukshetra, I think it is very important for us, especially for our leaders, to understand that perhaps one of the most unfortunate things we can do is to deprive someone of their freedom to choose, because it is through freedom to choose, to think, to try to figure out what is right and what is wrong, or what is true and what is not true, what is accurate or inaccurate. By using our minds to search for truth and making choices. This is how in Zarathustra, in the Gathas, in Zarathustra's teachings, this is how we evolve, not only in the material existence, but spiritually as well. So it's really important for our leaders to try to be facilitators rather than dictators. And with that thought, I will turn to Sanaya and get her wisdom.
Thank you very much, Dina. Over to you, Sanaya, please.
I completely agree. As leaders, we are there to facilitate and help nurture the voices of our community. We are all here maybe we're one team, we've got one dream. When we look at what we're doing with the Congress as well for the next 8 Worlds of Ashton Youth Congress, the leadership styles we take is to be collaborative with the whole community around us, and whether that's other youth from the UK or from other parts of the globe and hear their opinions, or with our elders as well, and actually collaborate on our ways of working, understanding their experience and bringing their knowledge, but also understanding that we have to do stuff of what the youth want as well. And me having that compromise, I think being a leader is about willing to sometimes take a step back on certain things that and opinions that you may have in order to bring forward the ideas of the masses and ideas of your community. And I think that's something very prevalent and something that as young leaders in our community, we should all be doing. We are there to make the voices of our community heard, and we want to nurture those, make sure that everyone has an opinion and feel that they are heard and contributing to our community. Because if we as leaders don't empower our community, then our community will dwindle away. And that's not what we want. We want to be the voice of reason, but also help nurture, guide, and support those around us as well. And I think that we can only do also with the support of our elders and them creating a positive community and a positive environment for us to be able to safely share our voices, our concerns, our experiences, and how we all come together and move forward within our community.
Thank you very much, Sanaya. As Asho Zarathustra says, I think tying the 30.2 to the 33.19, where we talk about individual thoughts of listen to the voices, both from within and outside, reflect upon them, and then choose each one for oneself. And we often forget the last phrase from 30.2, which is paramaze yongo, in each circumstance. So leaders have this concept of within each circumstance to make the appropriate choices and decisions for the good of all. And then 33.19 says, be able to communicate that to others so that other people can share. And today, Sanaya, you have done that. Despite being unwell, we really appreciate your straining your voice to share this with us. Thank you. Maybe please bring in Maruk Tamboli, who has raised her hand. Thank you, Auntie. Then Ervad Sahib Zarir, Bhandara, and if I may please call upon other leaders, Mr. Rohinton Rivetna, and then Mobed Sahib Cyrus Darbari also. Yazdi, in due course, lots of trouble for you to find everybody. Thank you, Yazdi. Over to you, Auntie Maruk.
I was just wondering if we could get a list of Mobed Sahibs or young and old, so that others in our community can reach out to them. If we could get their email addresses, so other people can reach out to them. I know that I often have questions myself that I can't answer. I mean, not only Mobeds, but Mobedyars or learned scholars like Miss Dina McIntyre, to whom I could reach out, but also my sons could reach out. I know one of my sons has a real strong desire to reach out to somebody who would talk back and forth with him about our religion, but there doesn't seem to be such a guru available in Canada or the United States, readily available.
A very good question. Is your son here? Then we may please hear from your son as well. It's wonderful to hear from people who are so dedicated.
No, he's not here, but he spends several hours a day reading texts about different religions, but also our own religion. And I can see that there is a huge desire in him to learn about Asha, truth in general. Mm-hmm. And it would be so nice if we could have some people like that who would volunteer their services. As you said, Ervad Ramya Karangia is there, but he must be overwhelmed by everything going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Auntie Baruk Tamboli, for your question, for your presence here today. We have email addresses being shared from Mobedyar Omid Mehrayin. Mobed Sahib Cyrus Darbari earlier shared his email address. Dina McIntyre has shared her email address. I'd like to bring in Mobed Sahib Zarir Bhandara, if he's still with us. And before that, Mobed Sahib Cyrus Darbari to share his wisdom further with us. Mobed Sahib Cyrus, please maybe bring you in, unmute yourself.
Yes, Sahil. Is there a question?
Yes, there is a question to you. First,
Okay.
I'll take a question from from Maruk Aunty, Mrs. Tamboli, which is, how do we reach out to Mobed Sahibs? And I'll put this to you in the context. We are so eager for knowledge, but our Mobed Sahibs who have completed their full training are juggling at least 4 things. Due to, I wouldn't say due to, but there are many factors involved. They are very well educated in profession, so they have a profession. I will raise a concept here which other people may want to comment upon, or maybe not, we'll see. The remuneration for a full-time Mobed, who is also an Ervad, a knowledgeable person who can teach us the meanings, is not sufficient in our opinion. The community may not always be able to give the respect to them as they would possibly desire to do so. So there are many, many factors. As a result, our knowledgeable Mobed Sahibs who are full-time practicing priests and our knowledgeable Ervad Sahibs, who are people who know, who are well-versed with translations and the texts, are very busy with juggling family, profession, teaching, Mobedi, Dasturi, being Panthakis of Agyaris. And the remuneration for this 5-fold job is not the same as a bank manager who may be doing similar things in terms of time and juggling, or a white-collar professional who, may be having a management degree. So it's a very sensitive issue, and I'm aware of that. But if you've got anything or anyone else has anything to share, this may be the opportune moment, with due respect to all the various opinions, with due respect to all the various people who have tried to juggle these questions. We will listen to whoever would like to share. And thank you for that.
I would say there is no dearth of information. The information is available everywhere, but it is how one would dedicate time. And ideally, one must have passion and interest in knowing the right thing, what is stated in various Avastan prayer or a Pelvi text. So there's a lot of, as you said, the factors are the same. What you face in US, maybe the same set of factors are responsible for the Mobed side staying in India as well to respond to different queries. Yes, there could be a handful of those people who would have learned, who would have gone through the study of Western language, and possibly then some of them could be in a better position to answer. As regards the gathas and the teachings and the translation, we ourselves, we know that different scholars, they have interpreted the gathas, and you may find 10 different translations, which could be confusing. So the best of this is how one would interpret the paragraphs of the gathas. And as regards the teaching to the next generation or whoever wishes to, yes, we have shared our email address. To the best of our abilities, we'll try to reach out to them. Those who are staying outside of India, with webinars and Zoom sessions and the world converging onto the cloud, there are different ways of engaging with anyone across the globe. So unlike the earlier times, it is much easier. You may just send one small message, enter into a session, and we can have a conversation. We'll try to answer your queries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mobedyar Cyrus Darbari. You made a very important point. Technology brings us together. And interestingly, as I see it, Asho Zarathustra has told us this. He says, 51.5 tells us this, Vispata peresas ashachitacha gambida. Questioning all matters for the sake of progress of the world, for the sake of Gamvidat. So technology can come through questioning, and questioning can also be of the meaning. So in whichever way you're questioning, thank you very much. Mr. Rohinton Mehenti says, my question to anyone who can properly elaborate. So I'll bring this to you, Mobedyar Cyrus Darbari, and then maybe to any other, if Mobedyar Zarir would want to come in, also to him. He says, please, could you tell us, should we pray Gatha in rhythm or in a normal tone?
Preferably it should be some.
First of all, Rohinton Mehenti, thank you very much for joining this session. It was at my behest. I sent him the invitation and he rightly accepted. Rohinton is serving the Agyari at Devulali. He is a college student, but he is pursuing Western studies as well. He has been my student last year, and my best wishes for him to progress. As regards the rhythm, yes, gathas are poetry. They are in a poetic form. They are poems. So it is always advisable that maybe, but as a mobed in our own the story parlance, we have the lot of prayers. Like say, when we start a jashan, the beginning prayer is always recited in a very rhythmic form, so that it becomes pleasing to the ears. So definitely gathas also can be played in a rhythmic form. It is subject to how much time you have. If you have to pray the whole yasna, you will not be able to spend so much time to pray gathas in a rhythmic form, because then the yasna ceremony may last for more than 5 or 7 hours. So it all depends how you pace your prayers.
Thank you very much, Mobedyar Cyrus Darbari. Mobedyar Zarir, I'd like to bring you in for your comment to Mobedyar Omid. Both of them actually serve the community honorarily, bending over backwards like most of our Mobed Sahibs also do. But before that, I'd like to, if possible, Uncle Rohinton, maybe please bring you in to share anything from your wisdom with us. Uncle Rohinton is bringing together a panel of people of different faiths to talk about peace at the Parliament of the world's religions. He has worked tirelessly for decades to raise awareness for the Zarathushtra Dana and for peace and interreligious dialogue. Please go ahead and share anything you would like with us.
Thanks, Karishma. Really appreciate the speakers, the erudite speakers who have given us the teachings of Zarathustra in our faith. What I'd like, and there's a yearning to put the teachings in practice. And what I'd like the speakers to also give us how to put our teachings into practice. And that perhaps would help us to live our lives, daily lives, through our religion. So that's something that I yearn for, and something that others would like all as well. So that's my plea to the speakers.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Uncle Rohinton. This brings me to something that Mr. Yazdi Tantra, who supports all these webinars around the world, and as I call him, my COVID hero, he has brought the world, both Zoroastrian and the extended friends of Zoroastrianism together during a very difficult time of COVID. As he says, doing is doing. So on that note, I'd first like to bring in Mobedyar Rohinton Mehenti, who is doing the doing and looking after the Devulali Agyari. Rohinton Sir, please may we have you? Thank you. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you all of you for giving me opportunity to speak over here. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can, and see you as
Yeah.
well. Dressed so finely. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to share one of my experience. It's a miracle in my life which has happened to me. I would like to share it. I was born with a stammering problem. When I was small, I was having stammering problem. I couldn't even pronounce my name properly. But my father never lost that hope. He continues teaching me the Avastha prayers and all. And the miracle happened when a week before Navjot, my stammering problem has gone away. Means I can fluently speak everything, fluently pray everything. So that is a miracle in Avastha. While reciting that Avastha prayers repeatedly, my stammering problem has gone away. So this was the first miracle I have ever seen in my life when I was 7 years old.
It is a very important thing that you have shared the power of the prayers and the Matravani. And may I also say, the dedication of your father and your dedication to actually learning the prayers and imbibing the power of the prayers. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for looking after the Agyari, and respect to your parents. I'd like to first bring in Mabed Sahib Zarir to unmute himself. And after that, if Mr. Behram Pastakia, Dr. Behram Pastakia is still with us, he has raised this concept of the power of the prayers and the development of our young Mabed Sahibs and Ervad Sahibs. If he's still here and would like to share that, I'd be very grateful to hear him. First, Mabed Sahib Zarir.
Thank you very much, Karishma, for having me over. Really admired all the speakers, and last one was Rohinton Menti, son of my good friend Nozer Menti. And if many people may not be aware, but Rohinton Menti is our child prodigy.
One second, Mabed Sahib Zarir, may we just request Yazdi to spotlight you, spotlight Mabed Sahib Menti if he can. And your camera is not on. Dekha to nathi.
Okay. Okay, Yazdi, you can send me the request through. Okay. Okay. So Rohinton is our child prodigy. He knew all his prayers by heart. I'm not sure, but by the age of 7, he knew all his prayers by heart. And that is really, really wonderful. And I want everybody to know it is something, it's a God's given gift and talent for this youngster. I've never seen in my life anybody of his age knowing all the prayers by heart. And he's the only one. And I really commend him for that.
Thank you very
To
much.
answer his question about gathas, which my colleague Ervad Darbari spoke very well on that. I would like to add one more thing to that is, yes, gathas are poems and songs, and you can sing it. But also prayers, like just the way we say thank you in different aspects. The same way we can say the gathas, like for Gesarna ceremony, we say it in a certain way to remove the evil afflictions and to disengage the soul from the physical world. So that is how we recite the gathas, how we have been doing the Unaveti Gatha for Gesarna prayers. But other than that, if we are doing our own prayers, it is excellent thing to sing the gathas because they are holy hymns, they are songs. Also, one more point that Ervad Cyrus Darbari explained in a very lucid way, in a very simple way. He said, follow the righteousness. But what is righteousness? How do we know what is right and what is wrong? And he spoke from Ushraveti Gatha. You make others happy and you'll be happy too. And that is the righteous thing to do. A very profound message in a very simplistic words that he put in. Dina McIntyre, I know her for over 20 years, and many a times we exchange things on gathas, and the amount of work and dedication that she has put in and served our community for a lifetime. I really commend that. Also, Mobedyar Khushru Mirza made a very valid point about reading the translations. Reading the translations are good, but explanations are more important. But to me, explanations and translations are just like the top of the iceberg. The real matter is in the prayers itself. So when you recite the Matravani, you create that sound vibrations, and through that sound vibrations, you achieve the wisdom to do the right thing, of helping others. And then you may not even have to think with your conscious mind, because you're in connection with the super conscious, and the wisdom flows in through the power of prayers. And then you start doing the good for the sake of good. Also, Mobedyar Omid spoke excellent about the leadership, that it comes from within. Also, Sanaya gave an excellent perspective on the youth leadership. And I was so thrilled to hear all of the speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mobed Sahib Zarir Bhandara, for your wisdom. Would any of the esteemed speakers or the audience like to share anything further? There is a question I have for Mobedyar Omid, and that is, as a Mobedyar in today's world, where you choose to dedicate your life to serving the community, learning prayers at a very late age sometimes, conforming to the rules and the regulations of the North American Mobed Council, which has shared Mobed Said Firuzgari's and the Iran's wisdom of the Mobedyar tradition. Could you elaborate on how challenging this may be to do this, how do I put this? To dedicate your life to the long set of rules and regulations from the NAMC and conform with respect to being assistants to the Mobed Sahibs. Do throw some light on the role of the Mobedyar, which is immense dedication, and we give you great respect for this. Please unmute.
Thank you, Karishma. Yes, it's not an easy thing, and definitely it takes a lot of time and energy to dedicate ourselves to humanity in general, and specifically to the community. But we always, I believe Ashu Zartush wisdom helped every single of us in our path. And I believe his spirituality and his wisdom helped me from the beginning once I started this journey, and I believe it's going to continue. This is going to be continue with his spirit and his wisdom. That's all I could say. And another point that Ruintan, he mentioned about the practical aspect of what we're saying. What I came up with, if I could treat every day whoever come to my path as part of Mazda, I just see the beauty on that person, and I try to approach him or her with compassion and try to lift them up, and knowing that everybody dealing with their issue, and we just have to be patient. Patient is the key. I think everything through patience and time could get better. And that's how I understood. And also regarding the leadership, another aspect is that once we come out of our comfort zone, we have to come out of our comfort zone sometimes, and in order to achieve something. And being in comfort zone is always easy, but getting out of comfort zone and be productive, be efficient for ourselves and our environment, wherever we live, that's the key. And that's why we have to work on it really hard to get it done. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Mobedyar. Omid. On the concept of uplifting, I think there was a meaning that was given by Dina McIntyre in one of her translations for Ushtana Zasto, and Dr. Behram Pastakia had raised this at one point to, we say Ustana Zasto Rafedra, to raise our hands in prayer, but we may also be able to say to outstretch our hand to raise the fellowship. Would you like to comment on your interpretation, if at all, Dina, if I may ask you?
Me?
Yes, please, if you would like to.
Well, there are at least 2 or 3 places in the Gathas where Zarathustra says Ushtana Zasto, and all translators, all linguists agree that when Zarathustra says it in Yasna 28 verse 1, it's in the singular. Sorry?
Please continue.
It's in the singular. And yet every linguist I'm aware of and every Zoroastrian translates it in the plural, 2 hands. Well, we have to try to put ourselves in Zarathustra's mind. What was he thinking when he said, with hand uplifted, one hand to approach the divine? In ancient times, an outstretched hand, actually it's not uplifted, it's outstretched. An outstretched hand was a gesture of friendship. It was an indication that the person had no weapon in his hand, and he was stretching out his hand as a gesture of friendship. And in fact, our handshake is probably an evolution of that idea. So here we have in the very first Gatha, in the very first, well, some people think Yasna 29 is the first. So let me just say in 28 verse 1, we have Zarathustra approaching the divine with an outstretched hand, a gesture of friendship. And throughout the Gathas, you will see verse after verse after verse that he calls the divine a friend. That is the relationship between the divine and us, one of a friend to a friend. It's not an authoritarian relationship. It's not a punitive relationship. It's what a friend would do for a friend. It's a loving relationship. That's why it is so important to, I wish more young Zoroastrians would study Avesta, the language, from linguists who have cutting edge knowledge. The language, according to Professor Insler, who told me this some years ago, is only about 80% decoded. So there's still work to be done in understanding this language. But don't automatically believe what the linguists say, because as I just said, you know, here linguistically it's one hand, but they all translate it as 2 hands, you know. So you have to first acquire knowledge of the language as accurately as you can, and then think for yourself and see, you know, what fits, the way Zarathustra uses the word, how it fits into his overall teachings.
Thank you very much, Dina. I'd like to bring in Mobed Sahib Cyrus Darbari, but before that, that is if he would like to make any further comment before we close and let Yazdi Tantra go to bed. And then I'd like to bring in Sanaya on the concept of outstretched hands to uplift, to stretch out and build a network. And this concept of network is very important. So Dr. Behram Pastakia was on this call, and if he's still there, please come forward. The concept of Pravardigan, to go forth and to celebrate the gifts from the past and the people of the past. The concept, like Ervad Sahib Ramya Karanja said, when we say fra spayo khedram, which Dina also referred to, the concept of fra, going forward, And doing so by removing obstacles, putting down weapons, removing obstacles is very important, together with what Dina has said, which is what Asho Zarathustra says. He refers to Ahura Mazda, please teach me as one friend to another. That is very important. The Avastan root for the word friend is also Fraya. So we say Fradakshta. He says, Ahura Mazda is my Fradaksha, the foremost guide, or the Sarente, the person who is giving us the way forward and developing this Vangheush Mazdai. And this concept of Frashta, to inspire, to advance. So Ervad Ramya Karanjia ties this. Ervad Sahib K.E. Kanga has given all these meanings. And so Frayo, Fradai, Dadaiti, to support one as one friend to another. Ervad Sahib Cyrus Darbari. Wait 1 minute. Before that, we've got Dr. Behram Pastakia. He's a doctor, working doctor. He's taken time to be with us. Maybe just get him in. Mobed Sahib Cyrus.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm on a train, so I don't want to turn it off. I just wanted to say that what Rohinton Rivetna mentioned is very important. And that ties in with what Mobedyar Omid said, that every moment in our lives is where we make a choice. And every moment, so what Rohinton Rivetna said and what Omid said ties in beautifully. And so if we can make that choice every moment of our life to make that choice, which is given in Yasna 30.2, then we'll go ahead. That's one point as a takeaway for me from this webinar. The other point I wanted to make is I have an observation that our priests, something happens to their brain when they memorize all these liturgy at very early age in life. And I think we have to learn from that. How come these priests do so well later on in life? They reach the highest echelons of their non-priestly life also. They become leaders. They become something to help the community. So our ancient Iranian Zoroastrians had figured this out by observation. And we should learn from that ancient Iranian wisdom and employ that knowledge in our day-to-day lives today, not only for the priests, but even the lay public, the lay Zoroastrians. If they adopt those ancient traditions of memorizing these prayers early in life and going through that ritual, I think it will make them more productive people in their lives generally, and provide much more to society, not only the Zoroastrians, but the world at large. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Behram Pastakia. Thank you, Omid, Mobedyar, for raising these points that have led to this discussion. Sanaya, any takeaways from you before we hand over to Mobed Sahib Cyrus Darbari?
I was just going to say, touching upon about our network and it improving our wisdom and bringing it to new heights, I think this is something for us as the youth that we're really trying to focus on, to actually improve our wisdom about the religion, about the gathas, about our teachings, our roots and everything. And calling upon our network, there are some very knowledgeable people, both in the youth community and older on a worldwide scale, and understanding what they can bring to the table and how they can educate ourselves a lot more. And I think going into organizing such youth events and everything, we need to have that foundational knowledge and understanding about what our religion practices and preaches about before we can then go and impart this wisdom on other and create a more collaborative community moving forward. So that's what we are really hoping to do, and we're putting in measures now, I guess, to kind of start these almost study sessions and everything, so we can actually understand more about our religion and improve upon our wisdom and share this with our youth community. So I think that's something really great, and we're all very excited and proud to be a part of, I think.
Thank you very much, Sanaya. This wisdom with love that Asho Zarathustra, the timeless wisdom that is very timely, applicable to everyday life in all aspects of our life, is key, for which we thank our Mobed Sahibs, our Mobedyars, our knowledgeable elders for sharing with us, for bringing Asho Zarathustra ever closer to us. May I now hand over to Ervad Sahib, Mobed Sahib Cyrus Darbari to close with his takeaways and then a hambandagi. Please unmute yourself, Mobed Sahib Cyrus Darbari. I'll express my gratitude to our whole team, Mr. Mehrayin ji, for bringing us all together, writing the biographies, spending hundreds of hours on the phone with our speakers. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mobed Sahib Cyrus Darbari.
Thank you. Keyword in the subject for today was wisdom. And while we started with different interpretations about wisdom, I would want to end with a mention of Idyaman Yazid. Idyaman Yazid. Reason being, Dr. Karishma, before we started off, you wanted a short prayer also related to Idyaman Yazid. The word Idyaman again is interpreted as noble mind, again, which leads us to good wisdom or good thoughts. So a prayer dedicated to Idyaman Yazid is what I would want to recite and end our session today with a small hambandagi. Airiema ishyo rafetrai zantu nerebiascha nairibiascha Zarathustra hai bange ush rafetrai manango ya dena vaidim hanatmizdem ashaya yasa ashim Yam Shyam Ahuro Masata Mazda Aidya Manem Ishim Ashavanem Ashairatum Yazamaide Amavantem Veretrazanem Vitbeshangem Majishtem Ashahe Sravangam Gathau, Spentau, Ratu Shatrau, Ashornish, Yazamaide, Stauta, Yesnya, Yazamaide, Yadata, Ange Ush, Podu, Yeya, Yenge Hatam, At Yesne, Paiti, Vango, Mazdau ahuro vaitha ashathacha yaungam cha tascha taoscha yazamaide Hashem vohu vaishtem asting ushtasting ushta amai yatashai Vahishtai Hashem. Yazdan Panaba. Thank you all very much.
Yazdan Panaba. There's your shout back. Thank you very much, Mobed Sahib Cyrus Darbari. It is very rare that after the hambandagi, I request a Mobed Sahib to comment. But as this has been wisdom, love, and fellowship, Mobed Sahib Cyrus Darbari, could you leave us with the essence of the Airiema issue, calling Nairebiascha Zarathustra hey to us for our support, Rafedrai, and a little comment on the Yenge Hatam and the respect we are praying or giving to entire people, irrespective of their gender, due to their good action. And then Yazdi, after that, please close.
Idyaman Yazid, while we may have the 33 Yazitas, Idyaman Yazid is not part of those 33 Yazitas pertaining to the Siroja prayer, but it is a very important Yazid. We find mention of Idyaman Yazid in a short prayer in Havange as well. And there are a lot of adjectives associated with Idyaman Yazid. The Western literal meaning is what I have already mentioned. Idyaman issue as a prayer is a prayer full of benediction. Hence, it is also recited at the time of wedding ceremony as a kind of blessing for the couple on the day of their marriage. And other than that, This as a prayer was recited by our prophet Zarathustra in the court of King Vishtaspa while he carried the fire adder burzin in his hand to showcase the power of Mazdaeus in Zoroastrian religion. So a very important and a short prayer is what I show is pertaining to Idea Mandiaza. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Hamazor, Hama Shobad. Thank you very much. Thank you, Yazdi Tantra, for bringing us all together.
Again.